The ever-present problem of working with such a minimal crew is how restricting that can be on our ideas. At this stage it can often prove difficult to come up with stories that are not only interesting to us, but feasible to film. For our first endeavours into live action, we've arrived at a compromise between a shot that appeals to us personally and something we can actually do on no budget. With that in mind, we decided to make an action dystopian sci-fi film.
Behind the scenes of productions like this are boring.
Let me be clear, this is not an instructional tutorial video. We had no idea what we were doing making this film. We had a rough idea and planned what would happen in the film, but we shot having produced no shot list, storyboard or even a script. Admittedly, the film has an extremely basic premise and no dialogue had to be filmed on the day, so a script in this case may have been a hindrance. When we arrived on the day, we had a very rough idea of what we needed to film, but we had no form of schedule, only that we knew the sun would be setting at about 4:30, which gave us just over 4 hours to film everything we needed. Impossibly, we were even less prepared than we were for Hillside.
Painkillers aren't gonna work! Well, I don't know, I haven't done this stuff before.
Once we'd sorted out the costume and props, we moved our other equipment out of the view of the camera and started to shoot day 2 in the film. We ran through this series of actions from the character waking up to the first shot being fired several times to get as much coverage as we could. Once we got into the action sequence, we quickly found that the same method of filmmaking simply wasn't going to work. Rather than work through the sequence beat by beat, we took the time carefully to plan exactly what would happen in the scene. This was the one part we had no prior envisioning for. All we had planned was that an action scene would ensue and the character would eventually be killed. So, we took some time to organise how this sequence would play out exactly, padding out the scene to include more action and of course make the whole film more interesting. The helmet above there. The helmet gets... That's not going to break, is it?
Oh, you absolutely...
Shut up. Having planned the action scene, it was then relatively straightforward to film. Obviously, since this part of the film was all handheld, it was much easier to set up the camera and move on to the next shot. Thankfully, we had made sure to get lots of different angles for the action sequence, so we could cut frequently enough to create a sense of franticness. I used a track from Mad Max as a temporary score to produce a first draft to, and then added an original piece of soundtrack from Sam Leon's before starting work on the visual effects. Producing this film served as an experiment of sorts, to show how even with our extremely limited resources we could create a brief action short. Certainly it proved the value of perhaps going that extra distance when it comes to preparation, though overall I think we're fairly happy with the results.